what a good piece of bowling.
So, hello everyone. So, welcome to the new episode of the Love of the Game cricket podcast. So, we have a special guest with us today. So, Kartik has joined us. So, welcome and thank you for joining. So, we have the Asia Cup is going on. It's been a mixed tournament. Like it started off with a lot of rain and stuff like that. You thought whether the tournament will go ahead, but fortunately there has not been major rain interruptions in match. There have been rain interruptions, but not like match abandonments. So that's good. So we have got more or less full games. Like Asia Cup is now we have reached the final stages. So India is taking on Sri Lanka in the final, which was many people did not expect it. Everyone was expecting India versus Pak final, but that has not happened.
I called for that.
Yeah, you called that.
I had called for that.
Yeah. So this is how things are currently. So Sri Lanka, all of a sudden, they had an unbeaten streak of ODI wins, but they are looking decent right now. I won't say world beaters, but they are looking decent for competing in the World Cup. But however, so Kartik, you may start. So what is your I think you covered the games in Sri Lanka for a few matches, if I'm not wrong. I saw some.
Right.
Yeah. So what's your overall experience of the Asia Cup? If you can just share that before we start off in the matches.
Well, I think I was the one who was actually very excited, looking forward to a game. And if I say this, it might look very random, but it was one of my dreams to go watch a game in Palekele because I had watched a game in the 2012 T20 World Cup, and what I saw there was amazing. Like you had these cheap tickets, you could just sit on a grass bank, lie down, and then go watch cricket, and then just very social experience. And I had not seen any kind of an experience like that because I've been to Lords, I've been to the Bull Ring in Wanderers. I've not seen a place as social as Palekele. So when the Asia Cup news came, and I knew that it was going to be moved to, from Pakistan to Sri Lanka, I was actually looking forward for the games in Palekele. And I was in fact tracking the Lanka Premier League at that point of time to see how tickets were priced. They were priced at 40 rupees, 150 Lankan rupees. So I was really looking forward. That was my thing where I was mixing cricket and of course a little bit of travel to explore the place. Unfortunately, in Palekele, we didn't get a full house. We didn't get a full game because of rain. But actually, it wasn't even rain; it was very light drizzle. And I'm just curious. They called off the game at 9:40, but the Premadasa game went on till 1:10 a.m. So very different rules. That's something we've seen. Very arbit rules being placed. So in fact, this is a broadcaster's dream to have an India-Pakistan game. I don't know why they let it go that way. But I think the Asia Cup that way has been, a good warm-up or a curtain raiser to the World Cup for the simple reason that we have seen, what kind of combinations work. It also helps us with our memory if whatever combinations we've picked actually works or not. So I think all of us have some opinions now after seeing how India's performed. There have been some good performances. There have been some really bad performances which has gone under the radar. But I think we'll discover that as we speak in the next 30 minutes or so.
Yeah. So now, basically, when we come to say the Indian lineup, so it was a good test. It was a good test. We had a decent outing against Pakistan, in the group stages. So we did not get to bowl, but then 266, how the middle order handled after the top order wickets, it was something commendable. So Ishan Kishan, we first saw Ishan Kishan actually in a pressure situation, how he handles himself. That was nice. So, however, we got a good run because we know how to score 266 and 356 against Pakistan. So the batsmen got a decent run in setting totals. Against Sri Lanka, it was like a mini collapse kind of a thing. So the bowlers came to the party there in a turning track. So that kind of a test was done. And in the last game against Bangladesh, we lost the match. So we will talk about that later. But it was an experience of chasing. So Gill came good. But however, so I want to point out some few pain areas I think which are there. So suppose if Shreyas Iyer becomes fit, so are we seeing say KL Rahul and Shreyas Iyer in the playing 11 and Ishan Kishan stepping away as the backup, or are we seeing any other combination? So and the second point is that Akshar Patel has been going really well with the bat. But however, I think there are a few question marks about his bowling abilities on spinning tracks, which is coming. And Jadeja has been bowling really well, but his batting form is a bit down since 2022 in ODIs, if I'm not wrong. So how are we looking at these things? So anyone Prakash, Pranav, go ahead. Your thoughts on these issues?
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
The biggest concern out of all this, at least for as far as I'm concerned, is Iyer's injury. because you cannot just come back and then again get injured and have a spasm on the day of the game. I don't know if you guys know, Rahul knew 5 minutes before the game that he's playing.
Yeah.
So that is a big worry. And if it's going to continue like this, I don't know for how long the selectors are going to keep him in the whole setup of the team, because you need at least one thing to be that the guy is going to be fit. With Aks and your point on Aksar, and I'll even add Shardul in this. I don't think you can, if they give 5, 6, 7 runs or maybe even 10 runs in their bowling, these guys are not going to play together in the combination that is going to happen finally when we get to the World Cup, and B, they're not regular bowlers. So on every 3 days or in a week they'll bowl twice. You can't expect them to come and do the same job the full-time bowler who's playing every game is doing. So we need to give him that leeway, because he more than makes up for it with the bat. We've been in solid last night. If he doesn't play, and even if you go back to the Sri Lanka game, the 26 he made, if he doesn't make those runs, we're in deep trouble. So Aksar, I don't think is a problem. For me, Iyer is a real big concern. And I don't think if things are going this way, Ishan's place so far is safe, the way I see it. I think Sky comes in only as a replacement now. Other than that, I think I'm pretty happy. And even if we lose this finals, I'll even say that I'm pretty happy that we got the thing right. Now the team looks much better. And now after the combo we put out against Sri Lanka and Pakistan, the fact that the reserves we have also look a lot more better compared to the time when we were 4 for 66. So I think good stuff has happened. That's my take on it. And I'll let Pranav take the rest.
I think Shreyas Iyer did bat in the nets alongside Vikram Rathore yesterday while the game was going on. I saw a tweet from Vimal Kumar and Abhishek Tripathi pointing these things out. So that's good news. I mean, he is about 70 to 80% fit. Should be fine for tomorrow's game, if not Australia's series. I mean, that leeway is there for him to be fit. About Aksar, Shardul, and Jadeja, the point that concerns me is that you want so these guys are multi-utility players, right? I mean, it's not that you are using them only for one part of the skill. The major problem that we have been facing since the last World Cup has been a person who is able to bat at number 8 and also share some overs, let's say, with Hardik Pandya or some other bowler who's having a bad day. So probably that if you're expecting them to play that sort of a role, what you're actually expecting them is not, give you 3 wickets. I mean, like what Prakash mentioned, if somebody is not bowling regularly in games, you expect that flattened kind of rhythm in their bowling. I don't see that with Shardul, of course. He picked wickets with the new ball, which is a good sign. So Lord does Lord things, but the problem with Jadeja, especially being a number 7, he's expected to finish games. And when you're talking about closing out games, somebody who's averaging around 25, 26 in the last year or so after playing ODIs, that's a little worrisome. I mean, the tracks will suit him with the ball, but he has to step up with the bat. I remember one innings where he played versus Australia in that last ODI alongside Hardik Pandya. He hit the bowlers for clean
70 balls or something, right?
Yeah, he hit the bowlers for clean strikes. I mean, India was wearing the old new jersey back then. I think it was the 2020 series or something before that. So that sort of innings is expected from him, and that sort of platform needs to be laid down by the top 6. So it's all interlinked. I hope what I'm trying to say is clear here, because when you're expecting a number 7 to finish games, you have to have somebody from the top 6 batting with him. So that sort of combination needs to fit in. Yesterday, Shubman Gill was batting with him. It was a perfect situation for him to finish that game, and that hoik was unnecessary. Against Mustafizur, that hoik was unnecessary. He was gone all gates. So the problem with me here is Jadeja's batting, and he himself admits that. Deep Das Gupta mentioned this on air, that he himself admits that he needs to step up with the bat. So I hope we see that in the finals, because the last 2 games suited Jadeja's technique, because we know how he's a good test batter. He's been promoted to number 5 many times, not even in India but abroad. So if he has that technique to bat at number 5 in test matches, he should show more maturity when it comes to closing out games in one day internationals. Also, Aksar is likely to be ruled out tomorrow. Washington Sundar has flown to Colombo. So it could be a blessing in disguise where you get an off spinner versus Sri Lanka, say you have SriLanka and all sorts of left-handers. Even Mahesh Tikshana is not available for tomorrow's game. So Saha Narashige has replaced him. There are a couple of injuries that are going on, but other than that, it's been a settled side as what Prakash mentioned. I've been happy with what India have faced throughout their league stages. You have a rain hit game, you have your middle order collapse, you have a lower order collapse, you have Aksar reviving you, not once but twice. So all these things have been positively taken. Irrespective of the result, I'm pretty happy with what India have done in the Asian Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, so Kartik, so regarding this, like the final, we have India, Sri Lanka. So like Sri Lanka has been like from a Sri Lankan perspective. Let's come to that a bit now. So like, what have they done right since the World Cup qualifiers? So like they have us like second string bowling lineup because their main Hasaranga and like all their main bowlers are, I think, are have injury right now. So like hopefully they are fit for the World Cup. So. But however, they have been doing few things right. I know it's home conditions, Sri Lankan conditions, but still like there was a concern for Sri Lankan cricket that they won't rise up to that level again, but they have been like fighting really well. So I think Shanaka is out of form, but his captaincy has been decent. Like I see it's pretty nice. And overall, like Dhananjay De Silva, all these players, Asalanka last day, so they have all been like, I think Sri Lanka is a team which like many parts are there and all they club together to form a big unit. Not single player is not a great. So like many utility players, like players who bat, bowl, everything, they are a great unit. I see them like pushing many teams in the World Cup as well. So they can be a surprise package in this World Cup. So what is your thought on the Sri Lankan side? Like, how do you see them like overall in Asia Cup and in the World Cup?
Right. The one thing that I remember very clearly when I watched the Sri Lanka-Bangladesh game, this was the game before the India-Pakistan game in Palakele. I think Bangladesh were a very similar situation to the way they were yesterday, 70 odd for 4 against India. And they were also 70 odd for 4, I think, when Mushfiqur or somebody got out at that point. What Sri Lanka did was immediately got on Patirana. So one thing I see with Bangladesh is when you throw express pace at them, or Yorker, someone who's the ability to bowl Yorkers, they don't have the batting ability to go face it. And Sri Lanka were able to close that game out where Bangladesh got bowled out for 170 or 180 and Sri Lanka chased it down. I think this is where India has missed a trick. And it's like an old question paper which we always fail. We've seen this with Mehdi Hasan too. In Bangladesh, when I think when India had been there for that home series, we got them on the mat for 70, 80 odd for 6. And then Mehdi Hasan came, scored 100, did it 260. The template was exactly the same that happened yesterday. They allowed Shakib, to get some batting time, and then Tawheed Ridwai also to, come and bat. So that way, I think to answer your question, I think Sri Lanka have got those micro combinations right, and they know when to utilize them. So Dasun Shanaka has been very, very street smart that way to know that Bangladesh is weak against high quality pace. So let me just get pace and just sort these guys out. That's one thing that's going well for them. Second, I think, against bigger sides that play spin very well. For example, let's say sides that are more talented, which is like in Australia or India. They have good players who can, if they bat 100 balls, they will eventually end up scoring 120, 130 runs. Australian batting lineup, Indian lineup. So I think against these bigger sides, they will be found out. I don't think they're that strong against some of these sides until these are spinning conditions. So the real test, and this is something that Sanjay Manjrekar mentioned on commentary yesterday, was I think it was during the Sri Lanka-Pakistan game that was going on. He mentioned off spinners who are able to basically get wickets while batsmen are defending them. That is the strength of a good side, because when you're attacking, it's sometimes easy to get wickets, but when somebody is just defending, are you still able to find a way through? I think Sri Lanka that way aren't very strong against high quality batting sides. That's just my take, because a side like England would give them a lot of chances and they might still be able to go take wickets. So I'm in fact looking forward. I was thinking of that because England Sri Lanka is happening here in Bangalore. And this is something that I was just thinking, saying, okay, will England take the same amount of risks? Because England are a side that is known to, bat in a certain template. So how will they basically go? Will they go put these guys out of action? So that's one assessment of Sri Lanka's bowling resources. But I think they've also been smart to realize that, for example, the game against India, This guy, Patirana, had just bowled 3 overs for 27 runs, and there were totally only 10 overs of pace bowled. At that point, Dasun Shanaka realized that it is better I even get a part-time bowler who's just taken some of 1 wicket in his whole life, which is SriLanka. He came and took a 4-wicket haul on that track. So I think he's been very smart, knowing which piecemeal resources he has and how can he basically utilize them without worrying about the opposition. Because you're worried about the quality of an attack that has Shubman Gill, Ishan Kishan, Rohit Sharma, or Virat Kohli. All of them are in such good form. So, but despite that, India still, played like kamikaze pilots, and we didn't have a great total to defend. But luckily, I think Sri Lanka also doesn't. So, as much as Sri Lanka is very smart with their bowling resources, batting level, I think they are very ordinary. And I'm saying that because some of the choices they make very retrograde. Like whenever there's a World Cup in sight, they go and call Dimut Karunaratne. Last time they just didn't call him; they made him the captain. And Owen Morgan, I remember, he made a mockery in a press conference saying, "Who's that guy you guys have as a guy? He's not even played ODI cricket in a while. You all of a sudden come and get him as captain." Though that arrogance was paid for because Sri Lanka ended up beating England. I remember Malinga taking wickets in that game against England in a 230-240 chase. But right now they've again gone back to Dimut Karunaratne, who's like a Mino basher. He's got 380 plus knocks in his last 10 games, and all of them have come against Ireland or West Indies or sides that aren't really very strong or even playing in the World Cup. Against teams playing in the World Cup, his average is 17 in 7 innings. So that way, I think what's happening with Sri Lanka is they're batting. I don't think they also have the discipline for batsmen to go play longer innings. The knock that you saw against Pakistan with Kusal Mendes, he averages 30 after close to 80 games. So only, and he has a couple of centuries to his name with a few nervous 90s in between. So I don't think they have the discipline of batters who can basically play longer. One of the guys who has a good defense and who can bat sensibly is Charith Asalanka, and he's somebody whom we've seen more recently since the 2021 T20 World Cup, where I think he had a great knock against Bangladesh in a chase. But outside of that, someone like Dasun Shanaka has the same problem like Ravindra Jadeja. You were mentioning about Ravindra Jadeja, right? Jadeja his strike rate against spin is about 66 against leg spin for the ball coming in. That's actually very weak. One is spinning, right? More chances are that he will consume balls. That's the same problem they have with Dasun Shanaka, where with Dasun Shanaka, he just can't play spin. You see the number of times he's got out to, someone like Kuldeep or, spin bowlers. Most Sri Lankan fans feel that Dasun Shanaka, because on the Twitter feed, I see a lot of Sri Lankan fans also ranting. Even they feel that Dasun Shanaka needs to maybe come slightly lower down such that he's used like how RR used Brad Hodge, where you just play against pace and that is your strength. And we saw him do so well in the T20 version of the Asia Cup last year, where he would come pummel oppositions, especially India. But that's where I think his strength is scoring against pace. So I think if Sri Lanka are able to time who's able to come when and also bat with a little bit of discipline, I think that is where they will go a notch higher. But otherwise, there are some very glaring weaknesses and strengths, not just for Sri Lanka, for any team for that matter. India are also just 2 injuries away from looking a very weak bowling unit. Like, for example, if Bumrah is not there, we saw what happened. People take wickets, but they're not able to sustain it in the middle. Same thing happened in Bangladesh also, where I think our bowlers took wickets. We took 6 wickets and then we ran into Mehdi Hassan. So it's become a script now. Running into any of the Mehdis, Mehdi Hassan or Mahedi, the other guy too. So I think that way Sri Lanka is aside, as you said, not having too many big names, but at the same time, unless they need Dasun Shanaka as a leader to instill a little more strength and self-belief in them. Arjuna Ranatunga was able to do that with a far more mediocre side in 1996 to make them world beaters. I say mediocre because if you look at their run of form prior to 1996, it was very ordinary, except for 1 or 2 tournaments where Ramesh Kallavitarana played very well. But 96, they took the world by storm. They somehow knew that this approach is going to work. And it worked. And as much as I also will put it with a pinch of salt because they didn't play 2 games against 2 very strong sides there. So they just needed to beat Zimbabwe to get into the quarterfinal. But this time it's going to be a lot tougher. But Dasun's that inspirational leader who's taken them to an Asia Cup title last year. I don't know if that's possible in a 9-game tournament where all of your skills are going to be tested over 1 month, which is a lot more than just a short 2-week tournament. So I still think they have a good side, but not good enough to make it to the semis. They will probably lose being a close 5th or 6th.
Yeah. So, I agree with your points. So, just one few points I want to make, a few observations basically. So, I think Sri Lanka in the World Cup does not have any match in Chennai, which I think would have suited them, in those
Yeah,
conditions. Yeah. So they have in Bangalore, I think so. So the challenge for Sri Lanka will be like how to face actual pace bowling, say like someone like a Mark Wood or something like that. How they overcome the initial storm, because I think they are like, as we saw in the Pakistan game, they know how to rotate strike in the middle overs. They have those players like against spin to rotate the strike. But how they finish and start at the top is the most crucial, I feel. And they have the bowling attack will always be their spinners will be in strength, and Pakirana is a decent
Yeah, I
addition.
have one point, man. You
Yeah.
said Chennai and spin track, right? See, this is a perception that's built over time of us
Yeah.
cricket watching. But if you look at the games in Chennai, in ODIs especially, I think the last game that they played in Chennai was a 280 kind of a track. 280, and we lost. Virat Kohli had that shot against Zampa, caught it long off. So Chennai usually has these 270, 280 kind of tracks. It's never only once, twice. I remember the 2011 World Cup, they had these spinning tracks where I think the England South Africa game in March,
Yeah.
they had a 170, 160
It was
kind of
under
a.
the pitch was under a Shamayana the whole day because of bad weather. But that was now we're playing this in October, so it'll be you won't get that kind of a situation now. It won't look like a crater from Mars, the pitch.
And Chennai, I mean, when you say that bad weather, it's there for 11 months a year in Chennai because Chennai is just
It is.
hottest.
It is,
So,
but this is the so-called winter when the World Cup is going to be played. The so-called winter, I repeat again.
yeah, Chennai, I mean, the coldest I remember Chennai ever being was, I think, when India played Pakistan in that test match in 99. When I woke up that day in Chennai, it was about 20 degrees. I had never
Right.
seen Chennai so cold. But otherwise, Chennai is fairly warm. And even in October, the only worry is with the rain. But my larger point was, most of these pitches, if you recall, even the games in England in the 2019 World Cup, England played Pakistan and Bangladesh just before the World Cup. All those games were 340 plus games. Okay, that's how England prepares their wickets, for that World Cup. But ICC changed the question paper. If you saw, all of England's games were about 240, 250 kind of tracks. So the question paper lies with ICC. Even recently in Ashwin's video, the pitch curator talks saying that he has handed over the pitch to ICC.
Correct. Yes.
So
Yeah.
a lot of I understand if you have very different distinct soil like the black soil in Lucknow, the constituent is black soil. So as a result, it will aid, bounce low or take turn. Like Bombay, red soil, as a result, there might be a little more bounce. But fundamentally, what goes underneath, the question paper is set by ICC. And so one doesn't know if Chennai is going to have turning tracks, as it is, very, popularly evidenced. Because even with Pakistan's fear that Bangladesh will go run riot with their batting order, I don't know where that fear came from, because you don't know what kind of surface is going to be offered just because the ICC controls access to these wickets. Local
It was their
associations.
stats guy. I'm sorry I cut you off. I'm sorry about this. It was their stats guy who said that these issues will come, and it was ridiculed again. So that's take that with a pinch of salt.
Just a little point to add on here. So, if the surface is controlled by ICC, as Kartik and Prakash have been mentioning, the point that we need to really look forward to is what sort of combination will we see on October 8th? Because it's Chennai, because you're tempted that the pitch will be slow, because you're tempted that it's a World Cup game. There are so many becauses. So, like Kartik mentioned, the question paper will be set by ICC, but the basic nature of the pitch doesn't change, right? My question would be like, would you play three spinners or you go with Shardul saying, okay, the track won't spin and we'll bat under due and chase down the target? Sorry to get off topic, but it's just a curious question.
Wait, my mind hasn't yet, gone back to the Chennai game because I don't know specifically what to expect with the wicket. But going by the last two chases, like there was a Shimran Hetmaya century sometime in Feb 2019 or Feb 2020, where I think 280 or 290 was very easily chased down. I think he belted Kuldeep Yadav, very similar to how Stokes belted Kuldeep Yadav in 2020. So from what I gather, Chennai, the ground being so close to the Marina Beach, and you will have that humid heat, which I don't know what generates dew, but I think for that particular game, yes, there was some dew generated. And I say this, what generates dew, because I've tried doing some mathematical analysis of connecting weather patterns from weather.com data and then trying ball by ball data to see if correlations were there with air pressure. So we realized that I ended up not knowing anything more, because you're trying to have very random factors. Mathematically, it doesn't work. Because I remember giving a press release in 2019 saying we're the only website that is trying to build all these patterns in. And then when I didn't get any response, it was really bad. It was like an egg on my face. So that's why I'm not getting into the humidity factor or the dew factor. But given that dew is something very common that we see on Indian grounds, Shimron Hetmyer is not, for example. I think sides may want to chase. But when you look at the last Chennai game, which was also a day-night game, it started slightly earlier. Now
earlier.
it has been the trend with trying to cut an hour of dew because you're starting at 2 p.m. India just exploded. We didn't have enough night time there to play. So I think it'll also depend on teams how they see themselves. Are they good enough to chase? So I think both with India and Australia, they've suddenly discovered two very different sides to them. Like India, so you always think they're a very, very strong side. But India has their underbelly. As much as they seem like these superheroes, Avengers assembled when India beat Pakistan by 228 runs. Now you had a batting order that had 9 batsmen that time. I mean, Shardul Thakur's got test 50s, but I'll consider him that a guy can bat. Somebody 9 batsmen, and then you couldn't chase Bangladesh's 265. So it tells me that as much as things look rosy on the outside, India also have a very soft underbelly. So I'm not sure. Okay, right now I haven't thought much into who could.
So we had some technical difficulties, so like we are back again. So Kartik, as you were saying, so what are the combinations you're looking at? So before we like dropped off, yeah.
Sir, I think if you're looking specifically for the India-Australia game, or is it for the finals you're saying?
India-Australia.
India-Australia. So I think for India-Australia, since they have a very good bowling lineup, the thing that I think I was also speaking with Prakash earlier was we need to make sure that we're able to not lose wickets early on, because it's been a bugbear. As much as we are saying that we will show intent, I think if you're able to do that, our batting order, if any in the top 3 basically bats 100 balls, India will win that game. Like those Star Sports graphics, right? Keys to success. So that way, I think India has a great lineup. We just need to focus on lasting 50 overs. We will definitely get to a 270 or a 280. In case there is intent shown in the middle, we can get to a plus 300 kind of a total. And runs in the bank sometimes works well, but if dew is really bad, we know that we've seen how we lose games in dew to Australia. Like we've lost games in Mohali where one guy randomly came and hit 80 or 40 balls in the 2019 series just before the World Cup. So I think it'll also be a good test for India in terms of their bowling and death bowling. In England, we scored 330 odd, 350, and Australia were put under pressure. They never even had the intent to completely chase that down. So I think India will have to show intent, but very closely guard the fact that they shouldn't lose wickets in the first 10 overs. That's the only thing. Otherwise, they're a very, very strong side.
So regarding that point only, so like we have some stats. So like normally we associate like in a World Cup, like India normally not that fearless as compared to say someone like an Australia or England, how they play one-day cricket and in general. So regarding that, we have some numbers to show. I will just share my screen. So yeah, so thanks to Ajinkya again, so like for allowing us to use this. So we have this like stats from 2017 January. So how does India fare when chasing? Okay, scores in the range of say 250 to 270. They are pretty decent. Like as we can see in the higher range of like 200, so 276 to 300 also all right. But when it comes to say overall like chasing beyond say in the high 320 to 350 and above, so I think we are lacking behind. Like like there was a time say from 2013 to 2017 when India was chasing for fun, right? So it was like 350s and everything was being chased easily. But however, since 2017 there has been a decline like in the chasing abilities, if we may say so. It is not only that we are not like going all out in the last 10 overs when setting totals, but also when we have a total, we are unable to actually like go the full distance when we are like trying to go over and beyond, say something like a above par score or something like that. So what are your thoughts on this? So yeah.
Oh, this is like a telling stat, man. Just 4 out of 12 chases. We've actually chased about 300. It's a very telling stat.
Right.
Okay, I'll just like to say one thing for 30 seconds. Although this is yes a telling stat, but then when you come to tournaments like multinational tournaments like Asia Cup and the World Cup, as you keep going deeper, the wickets keep getting used. The scores generally drop. Even if you go back to the previous World Cup, in the semis, we were chasing 240, which we could not chase. But you won't get these kind of scores. Even in Ahmedabad, I doubt you will get these kind of scores. And coming into a knockout stage of a tournament, you have anything over 260, 275, you've got a good score. So I don't know if we'll see these things. That's all I want to add. You guys
The
can take
point on your multination tournament where, let's say if you're playing only on 2 grounds or 3 grounds, that is when your, wicket starts to wear. But here, I think there is sufficient time, and usually in ground you have 4 or 5 squares. I don't think any ground has more than 4 or 5 matches. So that way, the wear and tear is not something you will see as opposed to, let's say, an IPL, where we saw it in the Gulf, where 30 games were played in just 3 grounds over a period of time, where wickets consistently get slower. I just think some grounds for that particular World Cup, ICC had prepared it that way, saying they just don't want like a flatbed that is having 300, 350 kind of tracks, where they just made sure there's enough. Because I remember Morgan talking about it in his book, where he says that I knew that we were going to drop the game against Australia at Lords because Lords, the wickets that ICC was making, from whatever he had heard from sources, was slow and it will not suit their style of play. So he had already knocked off Lords after he saw what was being done to the surface in the build up to the World Cup. So I think it depends on teams, abilities. I think India as a team, for if there are 10 different situations, India is covered in 8. So like that, England are maybe covered in maybe 3 out of 10 situations where they will always go all out. But on a Lucknow like track, which I think Hardik Pandya said it was diabolical when India played New Zealand in a T20. I don't know if England are going to go cry the same thing. I know Prakash wanted that to happen because that's probably why they're even playing in Lucknow, because it's a very known thing that you have a black soil surface there. So yeah, I think that way the wear and tear will not happen. But let's see. I'm just waiting to see how what kind of question paper ICC is wanting to set. I just hope it's like the Asia Cup, man. I like these 250, 260 kind of games where teams can come back.
More entertaining.
Yeah. Just quickly adding on to what the stats say. When we are chasing, the basic point here that we need to notice is that we are playing a World Cup. I mean, specifically when you're bowling first, India in 8 out of 10 cases won't allow the team to score more than say 260 or 270, because I don't know if you guys agree with me, because our bowling attack is genuinely covering all the bases that we want, that will restrict them to 270 or 280 at the most. I mean, and when you see the scorecard, you are playing 12 games and you're winning 12 games, or and you're only losing about 9 games when you're chasing something around 300. So I'm not expecting ICC to prepare flat bets again, like what Kartik mentioned, but I'm not expecting them to prepare rage turners. So it will be a balance between the both, and that will suit India more because they know it's their home conditions. And probably in other games, let's say where England and Australia are playing, the Narendra Modi Stadium can have a 400 game because both sides are capable of defending and chasing 400. So you have to see the context of the game, and wherever India is playing, I don't think we'll see flat beds. We'll see a pitch that's balanced to both the sides' strengths, and I don't see India, chasing 300 all of a sudden. It will be 250, 260 games, and that will be what keeping the ODI cricket interesting, because after this World Cup they have to revive ODI cricket, because there's as much as talk of ODI cricket dying. It's because of the Asia Cup that there's been some interest. Yesterday South Africa scored 416 and Henry Klaasen went berserk. But things like that will deplete ODI cricket going forward, because people like us like 260 to 270 chases. So the more we are going forward, the more people are coming to India to watch games. They'll surely get 260 to 70 games. Nothing short of that.
I think the way the broadcaster would look at it is, how can the game last 100 overs so that I can show more ads? Unfortunately, it is as brutal as that. More than 300 or 400, does it last 100 overs is probably what they're going to look at. So if it's going to make a 400 track and if one side has the ability and the other doesn't have the ability, they probably won't. So I think it's a broadcaster ICC driven kind of a thing in terms of revenue. I'm thinking that will be as an input. That's a dark secret, but I think that's how they probably will look at it.
Obviously,
yeah. I agree. Yeah, because 270 chases give you at least 90 overs, right? I mean, if not full 100 overs, it will give you at least 90 or say 85 overs to play with. Unless you have a Pakistan who bottle the chase in 30 for 30, 40 overs. So you're guaranteed of getting 90 overs, then you happy to take 270 games every day.
Yeah,
I think
fair
that'll be a
point.
good
So
math to do.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
go
I
ahead,
said
go
there'll be
ahead.
good I think there'll be a good math to do if you're looking at the percentage of overs completed in 100 overs versus the number of runs that you score. Just occurred. Sorry.
Right, right. Yeah. So yeah, this is all what we had for today. So it was a fun chatting with you, Kartik, as well. So thank you for joining. So hope we get a full game, no rain interruptions in the World Cup, as well as tomorrow's final in the Asia Cup between India and Sri Lanka. Hope we get a good workout before the World Cup. Like anything, some interesting things happen in that match. So we will all be keenly following that match. And to all the viewers, hope you enjoyed watching this. So, and if you do, please do support us by liking and subscribing to our channel. And also we are eager to know about your thoughts about Asia Cup and the World Cup, about the various squads and everything. So please write them down in the comments, or you can share with us on Twitter. Also, we have a page called the Cricket Pod. So I will be sharing that in the description as well in the YouTube. So thank you all for joining. So we will catch up again soon after the final, and as we go ahead into the World Cup, we will be going deeper into the squads, analyzing everything. So fun times ahead. So yeah, great. Bye. Cheers.
See you everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.